or mega deal. I'm talking about getting a closer, like a closer.
I mean,
like
I'm with that, but how good of a closer are we going to realistically be able to get? Because it's not like the team that's at the major league level is very deep and has a lot of expendable assets. Okay. It's not like the levels underneath the majors, Double A and Triple A really have anything that are other teams are clamoring or dying to have for in exchange for their best closer. So I mean, I think they should be buyers, but realistically, like are they going to have caviar taste with a peanut butter and jelly budget? You know what I mean? So yeah. I think that's what I need to see. I just need to see something consistent. I would rather the Phillies lose 10 games in a row so I know that they just suck, and this is another one of those years where they're going to suck, and I can just be cool with that. I'm being a little bit hyperbolic here.
You're in the Negadelphia chair right now.
I just need to see something consistent out of them. They're a game under 500. Every other week we're talking, are the Phillies back? Are the Phillies the worst team in baseball? Are the Phillies back? Are the Phillies the worst team in baseball? And that perfectly encapsulates them. So I would like to see some form of consistency before we decide to keep trying to throw assets at the wall and hoping something comes along and saves us and finishes us 7 games over 500.
But Max, I mean, like I totally get your point, but that's why I'm putting so much weight into these next 5 games, because the way they're going right now, if they can continue this, I mean, not literally win every 5 games, like the trade deadline is closer than it might feel. The All-Star break is 1 week from today, and decisions are going to be made within this time period, I believe. Buyers and sellers, the pack is going to get separated. And I loved your analogy, the peanut butter and jelly budget with the caviar taste. But sometimes you don't need to have a nice fancy steak dinner. I love myself a nice Whopper with cheese. You know what I mean? Like, why not go out there to Colorado and Pittsburgh, who've got a couple good arms in their bullpen, where you can say, hey, you guys are going nowhere this year. You don't really have use for him. Here, take a flyer on a couple of these prospects and ship us your Daniel Bard. Ship us your, Rodriguez, I believe. I can't remember the Pirates guy. He's got a
good old Rich.
Yes.
Rich
Rodriguez. Those are the couple guys on my short list for the Phillies, because you make a good point, right? Like, they do not have, and that's why I'm sitting here ready to deal Rhys Hoskins. Like, I'm not jumping to deal Rhys Hoskins, but you said it. The assets.
But I think Rhys Hoskins is still way more valuable to the Phillies team than trading for the closer on one of the 2 worst teams in the league.
Right. And I wouldn't want it to be a 1-for-1 deal. I mean, the farm system isn't looking too good. And now I'm talking myself into a circle here, because we're talking about buying and trying to build for the future. And that's the weird position that the Phillies have put us in. And that's why we're having this discussion that these next 5 games before the All-Star break could be huge for how the front office manages things. I don't know, though. I believe that they are better than they have shown this year. I think they're not a legitimate contender, but I would rather them rattle off a few wins and put them in position to be buying, because I do think there is something to this team that the bullpen has just anchored them down so much worse than they actually are. I mean, there is talent on the roster.
Yeah, it's a funny thing, because now that people like Didi are back, and Josh, you're exactly right. I'd still stick very, very firm to my claim that the bats have never lined up with the pitching yet this season, in terms of when one's hot, the other isn't. Especially Zach Wheeler,
our best player has 15 solo home runs in July, or 14? Did he finally get one the other day? I don't even think he did. He finally did. Right. So sorry, he's 14 of 15 solo home runs on July 7th.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, we're talking about Rhys Hoskins, and people want him to be what he's not, but what he is. I mean, I'll give you the NL ranks right here. Home runs for NL first baseman first, RBI second, runs second, doubles first, total bases second, slugging percentage second. That's good. By all accounts, an all-star first baseman here that people want for some reason to hit 290 with 50 home runs and 130 RBIs. That's not like that's a borderline Hall of Fame player that they want him to be, and he's just not that. Like it's to me as well. Hoskins he's key to this clubhouse. He really is. Like he's the guy that he's the emotional support. That it seems like, I don't know if Bryce Harper is, or if he's ever insight. And I don't think we'll ever get that kind of insight into his role. He likes where he's at. I always want my team to be buyers at the deadline. I just do. I always want them to be able to buy. I think these next 5 games are going to be really important, because I don't think JT Real Muto should have gotten the All-Star nod, and I also
100% agree.
don't. I also think he would have benefited from not going. That's just me looking at Brett's purposes because he's in a horrific slump right now at the Dish. But who knows?
It's been got picked. Yeah, I would say
it's been. Well, I mean, who else are you going to take?
It's a name thing, but even so, if you go by name thing, it still should be Bryce. Like, I don't know. I think that is a very questionable.
Well, it's a position thing.
Like,
who else?
That's true. I guess that's also
catcher are you going to take from the National League? So it's to me, there's always been those weird things where sometimes players benefit from getting the rest during the All-Star break, but sometimes players also benefit from going to play and being around other All-Stars, and they kind of get rejuvenated like that. So it's to me, if JT Realmuto can get out of this, this lineup is formidable because people forget that Gene Segura is a 320 hitter.
I forget it all the time. Yeah,
he's a 320 hitter at the top of your lineup. Thank God Joe Girardi has finally sat Odubel Herrera.
Yep,
and told us it's going to be a multi-day thing because there's bad. It's like the thing that Joe Girardi actually said that there's bad habits that he's getting into. Like, it has nobody watched this guy play baseball. The dude is bad habits. He only has, like, I'm not even talking about his off the field stuff where he obviously has bad habits. The dude, like, he is just a microcosm of.
He's got a low baseball
horrible.
IQ.
It's some of the worst I've ever seen. At least Ben Revere took horrible routes, but at least Ben Revere understood the game of baseball. There's no redeeming qualities, really.
I was just about to say his defensive play in center field, aside from a couple. I think there's been more than one home run he could have easily robbed that he missed, but he's been pretty good defensively in center field. And the funniest part about Odubel is like how he's never changed. He's really never changed. He's been the same player since he's got into the majors. And
I don't know. I just think these next 5 games are going to be big because you're only 4 out from the Mets, and the Mets they're going to try and push here. There's rumors that they're interested in Jose Barrios, Josh Donaldson. Yeah. They keep listing off these names. They're going to try and push. So they have a larger pool from the farm system to pull from to go get these guys.
Big time.
But you have a better lineup than them. And you have, I mean, I'm not going to say you have a comparable pitching staff because DeGrom by himself pretty much makes it the best pitching staff in baseball. But Taijuan Walker, who people may forget, I petitioned the Phillies to go out and get Taijuan Walker. Yep.
I don't believe you. Just no help here.
And Stroman's been doing well too. It's just like you need to go do something to fight them because now that Schwarber's down, the Nats are going to continue to fall, and the Braves. I got to hand it to the Braves, man. I thought I've seen some pretty spectacular jobs of shooting yourself in the foot by Philadelphia baseball teams. The Braves are taking it like to a whole new level. Like they are just like night in and night out, just shooting themselves in the foot. That's not even a play off the terrible Mike Soroka foot news and foot injury. I didn't even mean to do that, but it might be. So we'll see. Going off that, boys. Before we get into the next question. The buyer and seller thing is going to be interesting, but there's rumors being bandied about if you're selling, would you take calls on Zach Wheeler?
It's tough. I mean,
even right there, you're wrong. It has to be an absolute no.
I'll tell you why it's tough because listen, I would take calls on Zach Wheeler, but it would have to be something ridiculous because. You got him for like if DeGrom didn't exist, he's easily the best pitcher in the National League, and you have him for 3 years on a very good deal. So, like, if you're serious about winning or making the playoffs within the next 3 years, you can't take calls. Like, you have to keep Wheeler. So, that being said,
full stop.
We talked about the farm system. You could really revamp a lot of your farm system. You get like 3-4 legitimate prospects for Wheeler. I'm not saying I'd do it. I'm just saying I think you have to take calls at least, but. That's why these next 5 games are so big, because if you rattle off 5 wins and you're a game out of first place, then no, you shouldn't even take calls.
So what the Phillies did really impressively is they tied together big names on big contracts. As long as Bryce Harper's here, you have to be in a win now mode. So whoever signs with the Phillies is effectively tied to Bryce Harper. So if you're taking calls on Zach Wheeler, you now automatically are in the mind frame of taking calls on JT Realmuto and taking calls on Bryce Harper, unfortunately. It just is what it is. So if you're not taking calls on one, you can't take calls on the other. Am I wrong?
I think Bryce is like.
I think it's different for a pitcher, personally.
I think so too, but I also think, man, it's tough. I think Bryce is like so tied, like in terms of they went. John Middleton went all in on him. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Bryce isn't getting traded. Who can even take on an 8-year at this point? What, $240 million? Like,
a lot of teams could, because they did a very good job with his AAV. He's only getting like 24 a year, so that's like.
I mean, I guess that's not possible, but even still, it's.
I don't think you're wrong, but I don't know.
If you're trading for prospects, what's that telling Bryce Harper? Like,
right?
What do we really?
That's a different story, I think. Then actually, like, I don't think it puts him on the block, but I do think it shakes up the whole dynamic of like, what did we even do this for?
Probably sours the relationship with the front office, most importantly. Which is
a lot. And Dombrowski, Dombrowski can't do that earlier or this early in his Philadelphia tenure. So if you're not taking calls, or if you are taking calls on Wheeler, who are we not taking calls on, and who are we taking calls on besides Zach Wheeler? Because, I mean, if we're being honest, I would take calls on one of Segura or Didi, depending on what a return is.
And you know what? I like Didi, but I think I would take calls on Didi solely for what you said. As let's face facts, like, he's a weirdo, you know what I mean? Like, he's a problem sometimes, but Gene Segura hits 320 right now, and that is unheard of. And I mean, like, look. I think you got to take calls on him, but he's hitting 320. You got to keep him.
Max, anybody untouchable?
I mean, I'm going to biasly say Nola because that's my boy. I mean, that's been a long withstanding. Like, he is untouchable to me from a pure fan perspective. I'm going completely irrational, and I have no problem doing so on that front. I think Bryce for obvious reasons, but like,
Bryce.
In current situation, I think a lot of guys don't take calls on, but I think we're going to stick with that scenario as opposed to like you're going full trust the process with the Phillies and blowing it up.
No.
So I think in current mode, in current Phillies land, I think I guess it really just does come down to like, who do teams really realistically want? And I guess that does just kind of come down to Didi, Gene. I mean, I guess people will throw you something there. I'll say this, Josh's spirited point got me thinking. Am I wrong? Have the Phillies extended Rhys yet?
They are not. He is heading into an arbitration year after this year.
Okay, so that's kind of what I thought. And I mean, this is by far the best he's been pacing halfway through a season in his career. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to throw it out there. The dude has been, at times wildly inconsistent.
Sell high.
Does like to I don't want to say not show up when it matters, but it does feel like he hasn't always been the best with runners in scoring position. But I almost feel like that's more of a just because he has the Phillies jersey on thing as opposed to being Rhys Hoskins.
Right.
But yeah, I will say this, Josh. You did get the inner wheels turning, and if you're deciding to retool slightly this year, I mean, Rhys Hoskins would definitely be the best return on investment, I would say.
I think
so. What you just said right there is why I'm not trading Alec Bohm.
Oh no,
I'm not trading Alec Bohm.
Absolutely not. Not you know what? Yes, he's untouchable.
Bohm is my untouchable. Because
he slipped out of my mind because he's not even in the spectrum. He's still like I know he's not like young by age, but he's young in terms of MLB experience.
He's young in the MLB.
It kills me because whenever I jump on any sort of medium, there's always people that are calling Bohm a bust. Like Bohm is this, Bohm is that. Like it's like
look at how Pete Alonso did his sophomore year. Look at how players perform their second year in the major leagues. Like
it's the sophomore slump. He was always going to take a step back once teams had film on him and figured out how to pitch him, which turns out is low and away like pretty much all hitters.
Yeah.
It's just when you look at his numbers, he's still hitting over 300 with runners in scoring position, which is something that the Phillies haven't been able to say for a very long time. And the reason he was in such a slump is because he was, by the numbers, one of the most unlucky hitters in all of baseball for the first 3 months of the season. Mm-hmm. He was just he was hitting balls hard. He was hitting them the right way, hitting them into the gaps. They just happened to be right at people. And that's a larger conversation about the shift, but that's not what we're talking about today.
Yeah. A closing point on the All-Star break here. Just two things. One, more of a minor thing, because I'm just thinking about bullpen arms and making moves. Sir Anthony Dominguez. Is there any chance he comes back this season? Because
No.
I'd completely forgot about him. Is no chance?
No, I don't think
Great
so.
name.
Yeah,
Great.
when he comes back next year, expect that like during the spring training, expect that to be a very, very big part of the Jason Stark coverage and the Rosenthal coverage. Like
Can't
he's going to
wait.
be a big name whenever he returns. He should be a big part of this bullpen. But like if you're the Phillies and you know that going in the next year, you can't have him come back and re-tear his UCL, because he was the guy that he pretty much knew it was torn, tried to pitch through it, and then got like 3 or 4 opinions delaying his recovery by like 4 or 5 months, which he probably could have been back this year if he didn't do that. So
he was scared, right? He was scared to
Deshaun
get
Jackson
Tommy
did.
John.
yeah, this is a guy you have to protect from himself and make
Right.
sure he's ready for next year.
And my real quick second point was like I don't think we really did like an off-season review more or less, but I think Dombrowski, I mean, it's Monday morning quarterback now, I think Dombrowski had a pretty rough off-season, to be honest. Like I wasn't thrilled with the hiring of Dombrowski, but it's like I wasn't like pissed about it. He's a GM in baseball, and I don't know too much about him, but I think he had a pretty bad offseason. The Matt Moore and Chase Anderson signings were absolutely terrible, especially when, like you said, you see how Taijuan Walker's doing. And that being said, I'm not like out on it. Like this is the time to see who your GM is. Okay. Like how he handles this all-star break and the trade deadline. I think it's a big indicator of, is Dombrowski going to be the GM here for the next few years, or is he another rotating door who can't fix this horrible problem I think the Phillies have been mired in? So I'm interested. Like I'm saying open mind. All right, Dave, let's see what we got.
Yeah. I mean, keep in mind, Dombrowski's the guy who traded away Pedro Martinez to win now. So while I think they might have won the World Series that year they traded Pedro, just keep that in mind. I'm not saying Mick Abel or Spencer Howard's going to be the next Pedro Martinez, but
That'd be nice.
keep that in
I'll
mind.
take it.
Let's keep that in mind. So now we take a step away from the Phillies and we're talking about the division as a whole. Obviously, coming into the season, we all thought, wow, this is like the best division in baseball. And my question is, isn't it? Could it? It's not. The AL East is the best division in baseball, but is this division really that weak? Because to me, I look at it and I see a whole lot of infighting. I see a whole lot of infighting that kind of dilutes the product as a whole. So Max, are we really looking at an NL East that is this bad?
I don't think so. I think that it's definitely fair to say the NL East has underperformed, but even still underperforming, the Mets have been pretty decent. They've kind of had an inflated win percentage in terms of if you're just looking at the standings online or something like that, they might be a little bit inflated because they didn't play 8 games or whatever early in the season. But I don't think it's fair to call them weak. I definitely agree that there is a lot of infighting. It definitely kind of feels like a bit of an NFC East situation where everybody's 8-8 because they're all 2-2 against each other. Mm-hmm. But I will say this: I think you touched on them earlier, man. The Braves, for how stupid they play, are still winning, and I can't imagine that they'll be this stupid all year. The Nats did lose Schwarber. They were kind of in the mediocre territory with us, but I don't know. I think the Mets will still keep chugging. They're playing well. They have the best player in the league. I'm going to say DeGrom is the best player in the league this year, at least. You could maybe debate for the last couple of years, but easily to me this year, he's been the most impactful and influential player, regardless of position. And the Marlins are doing their thing. The Marlins are a classic young team. They'll win a scrappy game against the Red Sox or the Mets or the Padres or whatever, and then they'll go back home and then they'll drop 2 or 3 to the Rockies or something. That's just an example that probably has happened this year. Not saying it is a definitive fact, but that's the kind of team the Marlins are. So I don't think it's fair to call them weak, underperforming for sure. But I think by the end of the year, I think the Mets and the Braves, not the Bretts and the A's, the Mets and the Braves will both they'll both be probably pretty firmly in the playoffs. And I can definitely see one of those teams as of right now. I hate to say it, but it feels inevitable that we'll get shafted somehow, and the Dodgers and the Padres will have to play before the conference final, the championship series. And this is here's your also break prediction for me. The New York Mets will make it at least to the NLCS.
Oh,
Wow, NLCS from the Mets with no offense. Woof.
I mean,
man,
you get 2 free games a series at 1-0.
That's what I was thinking. You got guaranteed maybe one run off DeGrom and like at least your first game. That's pretty damning. Like that's dangerous. We've seen it. I mean, we saw it with the Nationals, right? A couple years ago, win a World Series on the same thing. So, Max, I can co-sign that, and I'll just take this and run with it because I think you're totally right. The only thing I like the comparison to the NFC East because they all went 2-2 against each other. But the main difference is like the NFC East was just so watered down. Like we all know it.
This isn't even just last year. That was more of a like in our lifetime. Like you go back the last 25 years, and there's always that's always a consistent theme.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I just think the NL East, like we may have overhyped it, like not us, just baseball fans overhyped the NL East going into the season. But I don't really know that they did because I want to just read out the records of every team in division's record. All right. We got the first place Mets. They're 19-18. The Braves are 21-22. The Nationals are 17-16. Phillies are 20-22. And the Marlins are 16-15. All these teams are like a game above or a game below 500 playing in the division. Like that is just the most, it sums it up perfectly to me. And honestly, as a Phillies fan, it makes me feel good because I'm looking way ahead here, but look at who the Phillies play in September, right? Every year the Phillies have had a chance in the most recent years, have had a chance going to the last month of the season and they've fallen apart. I kind of feel like the NL East is going to stay like this for the rest of the season. I mean, don't count out the Marlins, right? Bad offense, but that starting rotation is so good. Like, I think it's going to be like one day you'll be watching a baseball game and you'll see a graphic of like Pablo Lopez and Trevor Rogers and Alcantara, and it'll be like, all these guys pitched on the same team years ago. Like, I think those guys are like
trivia question in 20 years.
What?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, no, and I mean it's so Marlins on brand. I mean, you see Yelich and Stanton and Real Muto, like it's just so on brand for the Marlins. But all these teams have a different wrinkle in terms of what their Achilles heel is and what makes them a legitimate playoff threat. I think the NL East could be like a really exciting race all the way to the finish. Max, you said it with the Mets and their weird inflated win total. I think we're sleeping on the Nationals just collectively. You made a good point with Schwarber, but I do think. Like Soto and Turner is such a good 1-2 punch. Like, I think it's better than, I mean, what would you rather have, Soto and Turner or JT and Bryce? Forget about age.
Soto and Turner.
Objectively, you got to say the two guys that won a World Series 2 years ago, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. So I think the NL East is going to stay this way the whole time. I mean, maybe the Marlins will drop off a little bit. Maybe the Phillies, like, I don't know. I just think the NL East is actually really strong. Like, I'd take the NL East over many other divisions in terms of top to bottom strength. And I think it's not weak at all, in fact.
So I kind of want to throw a different spin on this. I don't know if the division's weak because the talent is good. But when you look at the NL East, there's no star management. There's no like really good baseball managers. There's all the managers here are either young. I mean, Don Mattingly, like
Donnie Baseball.
Don Mattingly was never a really good baseball manager, if we're being honest. Like he was never a really good manager. He's just like Joe Girardi. He's living off of name at this point, and I don't want to dive too deep into Joe, but like they're either old names who are living off of reputation at this point, or new guys like Luis Rojas over in New York. It's not. There's nobody that I look at. And Game 7, bottom of the 7, you're down. You're either down 1 or you're protecting a 1-run lead. There's no guy that I look at in this division and I'm like, he's going to manage them through that game. He'll be fine. Like Brian Snedeker, like no.
Yeah, no. I think definitely not. He might be the weakest, actually.
It's like, to me, there's no captain steering the ship for any of these teams. It's you're living off of people. The Phillies are living off of Bryce Harper right now. The Mets are living off of Jacob deGrom. The Braves are very much living off of Freddie Freeman and Ronald Acuna. Like, it's not, I don't know. I mean, and the Nats were riding off of Kyle Schwarber, who now that he went down, like Soto's underperforming this year.
Mm-hmm. Turner's
I don't know.
mashing.
It's so to me the division might actually be. I don't know if it's like as weak as people are saying. Like it's definitely not the worst in baseball, but it's not like
definitely not.
I'm not gonna say this is a great division because it feels just like a bunch of star players just kind of exist.
We're just vibing out over here in the NL.
They're beating up on each other. I mean, it's just I think it's just really as simple as that. Is they're beating up on each other. We just need to see a nice stretch. I mean, it feels like the Phillies played an absurd amount of division games. Like right,
They
like
have, yeah.
Okay. So
I need a home stretch of like 3 series when only one of them is a division series.
Exactly,
like that's what I need. I need like a good 15-game homestand where you're only playing the Marlins. And then other two other teams come to series. Like two other teams come to town.
Rockies, Marlins,
Pirates.
And then we round out the NL Central. Yeah. Reds, Brewers, Cardinals, maybe.
Like, yeah, give me something like that. Just give me something where I can like really sink my teeth into it, and like you'd win 3 series in a row, and you're really doing something here.
Well, it's kind of what it feels like right now. But the Red Sox, that could be that's no walk in the park.
Red Sox are a very surprising team actually this year. Oh, boys, we got to do it. We got to talk a little bit about our basketball team.
Yeah, I love it.
We got to talk a little. Yeah, Max, I'm sorry, buddy. I know it's been a tough week moving.
I walked right into this. I should have known.
It had to happen.
I thought this would all be out of the system by now.
Yeah, it's not, and it won't be.
Oh, it's never going to be out of the system.
So this alleged trade for Ben Simmons, centering around Brogdon and a first. First off, that's disgusting. that we're even talking about Malcolm Brogdon and a first being that there's another side to the argument that is not completely ridiculous. Blows me away. So, Josh, tell me a little bit more about this. Okay, tell me a little bit about this trade. How are you feeling? Encouraged, discouraged, or about the same?
Oh, fellas, you're not going to like this one because when I saw the trade package that, I'm assuming Morey scoffed at this one, he kind of laughed at Indiana and hung up. But when I saw that this was the first trade package to get announced when Ben Simmons was being shopped around at like objectively his lowest value point, I was kind of encouraged. I'm not going to lie. I was encouraged because I've heard people talking about like Andrew Wiggins. Like I've heard people saying like trade Simmons for Andrew Wiggins and call it a day. And like, look, it's all Twitter.
I think I'd rather have Brogdon.
I would rather have Brogdon.
It's all Twitter conjecture, right? And it's an echo chamber of Sixers depression and panic. But when you start seeing trades like that, and you start thinking about how bad Ben Simmons was. Seeing a trade for not my rookie of the year, Malcolm Brogdon, and a first-round pick being the first offer, it's a little encouraging because it's only going to get better, right? And now, after I've seen that trade, like we had a week of Dame rumors and only Dame rumors. Things died down for a full 24 hours, which is insane. And then I heard this Malcolm Brogdon package, which the Sixers scoffed at. And ever since then, I've been hearing other whispers that are slightly better. Have you heard the De'Aaron Fox rumors? Because
oh man, that would be a really
that's what I'm saying. Because to me, this Brogdon in a first, like declining it, it's like a precursor to just slowly working its way up because it's laying the foundation for a good a point guard who can shoot. And look, I don't need picks. We're past the point of picks. Picks are so 2015. Okay, I want a player. I want a good player, and you can keep your pick. So. I get it, right? I don't think you guys are encouraged by this, and you don't like hearing that I'm encouraged, but I'm just being honest. I do feel encouraged.
That zone, Josh. I got to say that sounds like you really put on your best me impression right there because usually I'm the one trying to grasp for straws for stuff like this.
Well, Max, let me tell you why I'm encouraged by that.
A different reason.
Well, I'm encouraged because this is not a trade package that Indiana wanted released. This wasn't even a phone call. This was an email like, hey, D, like maybe like consider this. Like this is on the table. This is something that the Sixers leaked to be like, yo, come correct or I'm not picking up the phone
at all. Yeah.
Right. So that's
who first reported this. Anyone remember?
Jason Dumas.
Okay.
Really? Okay.
Yeah,
He's up and coming now too
Oh,
in
yeah.
terms of breaking stuff.
and a good follow all around.
Yeah, this is to me the Sixers being like, yo, I'm not picking up the phone for anything less than
Yeah.
something we're both going to talk about. Okay, so this is a good play by the Sixers front office and media staff being like, hey, you know what, Indiana, shove it. One, we wouldn't trade Indiana, we wouldn't trade Ben to Indiana anyway, and two, shove it. So let's really talk about this. I still am firm in believing that he's going to be here next year. But Max, are you discouraged, or have we tried? We kind of swayed.
I mean, this is some utter nonsense. This trade package here. I mean, I think that, like I said, I think you saying that you're encouraged by how bad this is being the first leaked trade offer is, only up from here. And you know what, Josh? I think that's a great attitude to have about this situation. If you are of the mindset that you hope Ben Simmons to get traded. I personally agree with Banners. It feels like he's going to be here. I don't really know how to say it. I was trying to think of an elaborate way to put it, but I don't really have one. I think he's going to be here. It just kind of feels like it. I feel like this might be one of the few times where teams are just like, he's your problem. You know what I mean? Like, you figure it out.
I feel the opposite. Like, for me, this is encouraging because it's like, I don't know, like, it's pretty early. Like, there's still basketball being played. You're not even technically in the offseason yet. So the fact that, like, listen, I do not want Brogdon in first, right? Let's be very clear. But like, the fact that that's like close to respectable, right? Like, Brogdon's a good player. He's a point guard.
If you throw a second first in there, maybe we're sniffing respectable.
Right. I'm just like, this is where we're starting at. Like, I feel like it could have started at worse. It could have started at Wiggins and like both of the Warriors picks, which I saw people actually discussing. Like, no one real, like just heads on Twitter. You know
what I mean? High picks. You're talking about the
this
Warriors
draft class
picks.
is not. This 2 picks from this draft class is not winning you a championship, and that's what it's all about.
Probably not. I guess that's more or less correct.
Yeah, I want to see more because at the end of the day, the nightmare fuel, the darkest timeline, and any kind of apocalypse scenario you want to talk about is because if Damian Lillard ends up in a green jersey with a shamrock on the front of it,
I'll put that in the air.
And you know what? I want to ask you guys a question. Would you, if you're Portland, right here, if we're Portland,
okay, I like this.
And you hear 2 trade packages, one centered around Ben Simmons and the other centered around Jaylen Brown, what are you doing?
Oh, that's a really good question.
I think just based on the
that's tough.
So as Portland, this is under the assumption that you're trading Damian Lillard away, not McCollum, right? Okay. Sheesh. I mean, Jaylen Brown is definitely the more attractive asset as just the headline to that package. But I feel like the Blazers would be able to utilize what they could get from us more, if that makes sense.
I agree.
And I also think that the Ben Simmons, like the hypothetical ceiling, especially if you're a team that's like totally rebuilding, which if you're shipping out Dame, you're pretty much totally rebuilding there. The hypothetical of Simmons is better than like Brown's ceiling, right? Like, you got to imagine like Jaylen Brown, great player, great scorer, but he's pretty close to his ceiling, right? Like, hypothetically, Ben Simmons is nowhere near.
I'd agree with that. I almost feel like if he went to Portland, he'd be a number 1 option. You got to remember, he has to defer shots to Tatum. And I mean, he was shooting the lights out from 3 before he got COVID this year.
No,
he still shot pretty well
Brown
after.
And McCollum kind of play the same brand of ball.
That's what I'm thinking too. And I mean, Simmons is just he's so dynamic.
Yeah, it's just one of those things to think about. You know what I mean? Like, if this is really what we're doing, it's all speculation at this point. It's just maddening. It's just another thing.
We're about to go down the wormhole if we keep going.
Yeah, exactly.
It was just a litmus test number 1. I mean, it really was. Like, it's just
wait, do we have more in this show, or is this like litmus test 1 for the off season?
It was litmus test 1 for the off season.
Off season. I don't have any more up here for any more litmus tests today.
When there's another leak, we'll have number 2.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I was just I didn't see that one. I was like, how many other hypothetical Ben Simmons packages?
No, sir. We got a long off season.
Yeah, we do. We really do
for that. Boys, halftime. We got to tell you about our friends over at PHL Sports Nation. They've sent us some fantastic guests over here, Mr. Brandon Apter, Mr. Jolliker. Let's see, Mr. Jeremy Rice we had on recently. Everybody we've got over there at PHL Sports Nation, they do a great job. PHL Sports Nation, enhancing your sports fan experience. All they do is they give you great coverage on your favorite favorite Philadelphia sports team, whether it be blogs, social media, anything in between. You can give them a follow over there at PHL Sports Nation, any of their individual blogs, Phillies Nation, Sixers Nation, etc. Check them out at phlsportsnation.com. Philadelphia Sports Nation, enhancing your sports fan experience. And boys, apparently I didn't have enough coffee today because I cannot keep my words straight. But our second half is going to be word on the street. You guys know how it goes. I'm going to give you a sentence, phrase, or anything with a blank missing. And what you guys got to do is you got to fill in that blank.
Love
We'll
it.
start out with a good one first here.
Oh, boy.
Oh, they're out of order here. Here we go. The Philadelphia blank will hoist the next trophy. You got 4 to pick from. Who's hoisting the trophy next? Josh.
Fellas, I'm choosing an answer almost like I don't want to choose one, like any of the 3. I'm choosing the Flyers simply because of I don't really see the Sixers doing it anymore like I quite did, and I don't want to go down this Negadelphian wormhole. I really don't want to.
Beautifully reactionary. I love it. Josh, please never change.
I just like
It's been a long 3 weeks since I've seen you guys.
Every damn year. I'm just starting to think
Christ.
It like doesn't matter anymore. Because I mean, the only option, the answer is like the Sixers, right? And I think I've reached this point where I'm like seeing what the Canadians did this season also. And like they're not going to win the cup, of course. But we've seen it before with the Flyers team. We saw it in 2011. We saw it a couple years ago. And I think it's just like the default answer because I don't want to pick the main 3. So I'm going to say Flyers because I think Carter Hart could become, you see it's all about goalies. I still believe in Carter Hart. Give me the Flyers just because listen, this is less of a Josh Flyers rant and more of a I can't trick myself into believing in the Sixers anymore. All right. I'll believe it when I see it, but for now, the Flyers.
Jesus, Max, the Philadelphia blank will hoist the next trophy.
The Philadelphia Union.
Oh,
good for you.
They have multiple opportunities in a given season, and B, they're just the best team around here. And C, on top of that, they have a better farm system than the other 4 teams combined. I guess you can't really include the Eagles because that doesn't really count. The Sixers count for like a half a point on that front. But in all seriousness, the Union are, for those of us who are uninitiated with Philadelphia Union culture, they are the kings in the MLS of developing young talent. For anyone maybe who's heard the name Brendan Aronson in passing in the last few years,
sir, the pride of
Union
Medford.
wonder kid who they sold off to the German second league for about $17.5 million before this past MLS offseason started. And look, I get it. If you're just traditional Big Four person, $17.5 million, what that means? That's nothing. That's 2/3, not even 2/3 of Carson Wentz's salary last year. That doesn't mean anything, right? Wrong. A soccer team with $21.5 million extra in assets on top of their annual, their usual operating budget. For context, the Union are going to take half of that money and do more with it than, I went blank on an analogy here, but let's just keep it simple. They're going to be able to make 10 new practice fields and sign 15 new youth players who they're going to turn into 15 more $17.5 million, wonder kids that they sell to Bulgaria or Austria or the second division in Germany or wherever they go. So I think the Union, look, I'm not going to throw the D word out there, but what I'm going to say is that if you were building a team in a video game, you would want to be set up how the Union are with young stars in your starting lineup and young stars developing at 15, 16 in the minor leagues, so to speak.
I'm mad I didn't make that poll myself. I want the Flyers as a opt out of any of the teams, but that's both a good answer and a knock on the 4 main teams. Like, hey, I gotta get out to Chester and join the Sons of Ben because that is an electric atmosphere too.
I gotta say, I had the privilege of interning with the Union many, many moons ago at this point. I guess it was like 5 years ago, and they were literally having their worst season in team history. That stadium was still packed every single game. It didn't matter. Soccer fans are a different breed, especially the Sons of Ben, because those people are, there's a couple other ultra groups in the MLS that kind of give them a run for their money, but I mean, no disrespect to the Premier League and all the other popular leagues overseas. That's the closest we're sniffing to them is something like the Suns have been.
Yeah. I don't know, boys. I'm going to agree with Josh here. I'm going our boys in the orange and black sweaters.
Wow.
People forget, and how do I say this delicately? It might take another bench boss than AB. He's for the exact reason he was running. Huh?
What a fall from grace, huh?
Well, I don't know if it was a fall from grace. To me, when they hired Alain Vigneault, you kind of got to look back at this guy's career. He's a tough coach. He's not a player's coach.
Gotcha.
And his tactics there's always a timeline. There's not going to be a job in hockey where Alain Vigneault can come in there and stay for 15 years. The way he is, who he is, has a timeline.
Got it.
On when it's going to run off. And I think it might have run off on this team mainly because of the veterans.
That's what you're going to say, because of the bubble, because they were stuck with him.
I was thinking the same thing.
But the thing is, a lot of people forget that this team does have high-end talent. I still can't stand and I won't stand for any more Claude Giroux slander. I won't. I just can't do it.
You shouldn't.
There's going to be a different looking team on the ice when they take the ice at the Wells Fargo Center next year. A couple of key veterans might be gone. Jake Voracek might be one of them. Unfortunately,
future Seattle Kraken Jake Voracek.
Well, hey, don't Shane Gostisbehere might make his way out there too, since Dave Haxtell is now the coach, and he loves him some.
I don't think they need to pluck Ghost, do they?
He's got
to wait for him to get cut again randomly.
He cleared waivers, so he probably. If you're the Flyers, you would probably protect him just to make them pluck him. You know what I mean? Because then you get compensation for it, at least in the form of draft capital. But like the Flyers are they're keeping an eye on Seth Jones, who would be a huge pickup for this team. There's some Larson rumors.
That would be.
I've heard
Larson would be huge for this team. It's like you said, Josh Carter Hart. I feel like there's no way this kid doesn't rebound. He's just too tough of an individual.
It's an Alec Bowman season.
Yeah, I just really wish that Chuck Fletcher was a better drafter, because you take a look at his time in Minnesota and how they made so many big trades to go try and win now, with all the aging veterans that are now there. I mean, that's a really good hockey team as well, but they did a lot through the draft. It's just, imagine if this Flyers team had Cole Caulfield. Like, if it's
such a hockey name. That's more a lacrosse name, but same thing.
I got nothing.
Can you imagine? And everybody and their mom who was watching that draft saw Caulfield slip a little bit, and they were going, hold up, are you slipping? Oh, boys, here we go. Didn't happen.
What I was saying about Michael Porter Jr. a few years ago. I'm sorry. I just had a flashback. I had some PTSD to Michael Porter Jr. slipping and reminded me about how
we're going to get off tangent here, but I will never ever slander any team for passing on an 18-year-old with 2 back surgeries already. I just won't.
Yeah, I'm
the Nuggets were the perfect time to do it, because they already had a first-round pick in that draft, and they're like, we are the perfect spot to draft this guy, because we have a plethora of talent in front of him. But if this guy is as good as advertised, he's easily better than basically all of them.
Yeah. So I'm going to go with our boys in the orange and black sweaters as the ones who finally hoist the Stanley Cup trophy, since the Broad Street Bullies did it back in the day. Our next word on the street here, centers. Golly, they're out of order. Oh, boys. Centers around All-Star Weekend with baseball's All-Star Weekend coming up in after the next 5 games. This one's good because there's been a number of changes to a number of All-Star games in the past couple of seasons to make them more entertaining. So the blank, give me one of the 4. Hey, you know what? Let's go. We can even go 5. I don't know what MLS's All-Star Weekend's like, but if it's fun, you tell me.
It's not MLS for me this time. Don't worry.
All right, cool. So the blank has the most entertaining All-Star Weekend. Max, who takes it if MLS doesn't?
I kind of want to give another cop-out answer and say the mid-2000s NFL has the most entertaining All-Star Weekend. What's that look for? That's when they used to do all the skills challenges in every year when they did. They
still do them.
They were gone for a while, and they're not back with the same force as they used to be, and the same gusto and prestige. Because before, they actually used to get, when the Pro Bowl was held, I feel like it was. Yeah. Taken more seriously. I feel really gross saying that, because it's never been taken seriously, but like it feels like it's just been like totally terrible for the last 10 years. I'm going to say the NBA because the NBA is just the showman sport at this point. It has the biggest attraction to all the most influential non-athletes related to the sport. Basketball has just has the most human to human interaction from player to player, player to fan. And I'll say this, I'll leave out with this. A loud, deafening football stadium is one thing. Just hearing the link, or you pick your stadium, just go absolutely crazy on a third down. But to me, the best fan noise in sport is a basketball arena chanting something at the refs. It's been duplicated in timeless ways. College, pro, high school, European, Australian, wherever you want. People in basketball arenas, their words to those on the court they're a little bit more impactful. And I think that's kind of what All-Star Weekend's all about, right? It's all about the fans and those who drive the game. And I think that's, to me, the NBA has probably got it locked down.
I love that. Josh, the blank has the most entertaining All-Star Weekend.
Yeah, I mean, it's a two-horse race for me. It's NBA and the MLB. And I think 10 years ago, I would have said the NBA. But I think it's just it's the dunk contest. Truthfully, it's the dunk contest and the All-Star game that have lost a lot of luster in my eyes.
Yeah, the dunk contest really took a hit.
It really did. Like, I remember the this is not the most famous, but for me, it sticks out. Watching Nate Robinson and Dwight Howard go back and forth. I love watching that, especially as I was really young when that happened. I wasn't tuned to the NBA, so for me, it's more of a casual. Like, watching that, it sucked me in. And I was more.
Well, the tragedy is before or after Nate Robinson and Dwight Howard. Sure, there was the crazy Derek Jones Jr. Derek Jones Jr. dunks, but the last one that was a tongue twister. The last one was very noticeable. Besides that, was Aaron Gordon and Zach LaVine, and what's awesome. Between them and after then? You know what I mean? It's. I'm sorry to interrupt. That's just I agree. It's such a shame that the dunk contest isn't what it used to be.
And that's really it. And also, I mean, I think the All-Star game is kind of rough. I love the Elam ending, but why watch the first three quarters? It's very much like buddy. I'm sorry to be a boomer again, but you see the videos of old All-Star games and it's intense there. So I'm going to go with the MLB because I love the home run derby. I think I can't remember the first modification. I heard the rules and I was like, oh, I don't like that. And then I'm watching it and Vladdy a couple of years ago, I think that was a couple of years ago. That was awesome. Watching Vladdy Jr. Come onto the scene in the home run derby. And it's just so fun watching these guys mash the 500 footers. It really never gets old. And this is me being a baseball purist. I always think the All-Star game from a pure sport wise is always the best. The MLB All-Star game, it was the best.
On the line.
It used to. That's what kind of takes it.
Oh, yeah, I guess they just changed that.
I wish they still kept that because it's always been the best game out of all of the sports easily. A lot of people like the NHL. I think they do a good job of making it fun, their skills challenge. I'm not a hockey guy. I don't watch it. So I'm going with the MLB, and we got Ohtani in the home run derby. What's better than that? Having a pitcher in the home run derby? I'm all in. I'm excited for it.
We got Joey Gallo just announced today too for the home run derby. That guy's gonna mash baseball.
And it's in Coors Field this year. Come on, give me. It's close. It's close. I'm not trying to just shit on the NBA All-Star Weekend. It's very entertaining. I watch it every year, but I'll take MLB over it.
I want to say hockey because the NHL has by far the best skills competitions anymore. They have by far the best skills competitions. But what they also do is the NHL is they do a very, very, very good job of highlighting the women's side of hockey as well. And have introduced a very big part of their All-Star weekend into highlighting the women's All-Stars too, and bringing them in and making them part of that. But the most entertaining is by far baseball. The home run derby is by far the most entertaining thing in sports outside of playoff sports. It really is. It's one of the most entertaining things.
Anything that's meaningful.
It's exactly anything that's meaningful. Anything exhibition. The MLB home run derby is by far and away the best. But also, what the MLB's been doing with the All-Star game is having players in the field mic'd up.
That's right.
Talking live with the broadcasters, which is something that no other sport, let's be honest, no other sport can do that because they don't have downtime.
As someone who doesn't watch the MLB All-Star game, hand up.
Oh, dude.
Had no idea.
It was fantastic. A-Rod was in the booth 2 years ago, the last All-Star game. And he's like, they had Christian Yelich on one side and Bellinger on the other, both mic'd up, and they're both very good friends. And having these guys literally talk live on a broadcast while in the field was like talking with A-Rod was incredible. Like it's a ton of fun. And I mean, they had like, it was Brantley and somebody else, and they're running, they're really good friends, and they're running to catch a fly ball, and the other one cuts the other guy off. Like it's like, it takes me back to, I've never played in an all-star game, but like your buddy cutting you off, taking fly balls and like joshing around like that. Like it's by far and away the most entertaining game. I do agree though. I really wish MLB kept the, whoever wins the all-star game gets home field advantage. Like that was huge. It sucks they took it away. Let's see. Our last question in Word on the Street. We're circling back to these Phils. And I don't have the graphic. Boys, it's a tough day for me. It's been a long week, all right?
That's all right.
It's been a very long week. I'm going to give you this one. Blank should be the Phillies closer. Josh.
Oh, man. Look, I guess I'll go with Ranger if they want to go with him, but that's not the sexy answer. I want to try out Archie Bradley. I really do. And I think maybe Archie hasn't had a great year, and I think hypothetically he's more valuable as a setup guy or as a fire stopper, but I do want to try out Archie as a closer. He was a closer last year, and I think Ranger Suarez is really good, but I'd much rather have him just be like your go-to lefty out of the bullpen that can pitch more than an inning. Like he's just the way they've been using Ranger all year has been one of the few things that I've liked about Joe Girardi this season. I don't want to go into Joe Girardi because I don't think a lot of it is fault. It's a whole different tangent, but I like how they've been using Ranger. I don't think a lot of it is fault, Banners. But anyways.
I think that's why Banner's is giving you the stink face.
Why? You think a lot of it is his fault?
No. We said we're not doing this next week.
Okay.
Stay tuned. Stay tuned for next week's episode.
I do think a lot of it is Joe Girardi's fault.
I don't like Joe, but I mean the bullpen's terrible. The bullpen is really bad again, and that's on Dave Dombrowski. Archie Bradley, I think, should be the closer. Try it out. What's up? No,
the bullpen is pretty ass, Banners. You can't really argue that.
It is, but like anybody besides Joe Girardi wouldn't have used Hector Neris as the closer. And I'm only going on this because we're talking about closers. Anybody besides Girardi would have hooked Neris from the closer role 10 saves ago.
Like I did 2 months ago when he already had 4 blown saves, and I said, bad start. I'll say this in my ideal world, it would be Ranger Suarez because I think having a left-handed closer is I don't want to say invaluable, but it's certainly an advantage, I would say. But I think that the real answer is the Phillies. Who should the Phillies closer be? Somebody not currently in the Phillies organization. I think maybe that's a cop-out answer after what we talked about earlier, but it's just, I mean,
that's the right answer.
How many more saves can they blow before they're like, okay, well, I guess, pitcher number 9 is not the guy.
Don't put that out there. Don't put that out in the universe.
I mean, I'll say this. I'm just as superstitious in terms of jinxes as you are, Banners. That's not, us talking about it here, that's not going to change the Philly code. That's set in stone. There's something fundamentally established with that. Just like them sucking with runners in scoring position since 2006. Yeah. So, I don't know who it is. That's not my job, thankfully. Someone not representing the Phillies organization as of 8:01 p.m. on July 7th, 2021.
You are correct. That is the correct answer is somebody that's not here right now. The in a perfect world answer would be Jose Alvarado if he could kind of rein it in as a lefty who can pump it up to 101. That's in a perfect world if he could have some kind of control. But I don't consider him like a good. I shouldn't say this. Obviously, subjectively, he's a good pitcher because he's in the MLB. I don't consider him that good of a pitcher based on. Yeah. Look, I'm not the guy who tunes in every game. I will happily defer to you two on pretty much anything baseball. One of those guys who just has not ever really impressed me. He's kind of like Dallas Goedert to me of the Phillies. Like everyone else sees it, I don't really see it as much as everyone else, and I don't really have the faith in him to be the guy. My realistic answer though is a committee should be the.
Why not? Honestly, I know.
I hate the idea of a closer
You
by
don't have
committee.
a
I agree.
choice.
I hate it too, but at this point, you have to play matchups
Mhm.
unless you're.
I mean, yeah,
and you
that's
have
true.
to play
Desperate times
matchups
call for
unless your
desperate
front
measures.
office is going to go out there and get you a Bradley out of nowhere, like which obviously not going to
Yeah.
happen. But like, it's not going to. It's right now. You have to play the matchups, whether that's Ranger, whether it's Archie Bradley, whether Connor Brogdon steps up, whether it's Alvarado. Some nights it's just. It needs to happen. You know, what I
Connor
don't want to see
Brogdon
is
in a first for Ben
Alvarado
Simmons,
out
anybody?
there. Huh?
Said Connor Brogdon in a first for Ben Simmons, anybody?
Deal. Sold. My goodness. That's it for Word on the Street. Boys, before we get out of here, we always got to do our tap outs. And I'll go first. I want to give a shout out to Mr. Langston Galloway. I do. I got to do it.
I think I know where this is going, but go for it.
Langston Galloway debuted his new sneaker brand yesterday during the game one of the NBA Finals. It's called Ethics. I can't really speak. Obviously, not much is known about the shoes yet, as they were just debuted yesterday. But as someone who he enrolled in Harvard's, there's like some fancy title to it because it's Harvard. Why wouldn't there be?
Yeah.
He enrolled in
Harvard exquisite, super smart.
Yeah. So some ridiculous title, but he enrolled in a program at Harvard over the summer to kind of understand the business end of sneakers and where those partnerships come from. And he came out with a sneaker line. And as a player who formerly had partnerships with the major brands, to come out and offer a challenger to pretty much a three-way monopoly, when we really think about it, is incredibly ballsy. And you got to give him props to come up with something that is like to have the R&D and be able to put out a product he went through the program last summer or the summer before, like to have like a functional product that can be played in at an NBA level this soon. You got to give the guy props, not only for the balls just to be able to do it, but for actually doing it. And I hope it takes off. You know what I mean? I hope other players are wearing Ethics next year. So Langston, good on you. And hopefully you beat the Bucks. Who's tapping out?
I mean, I don't really have too much other than just kind of circling back to what we talked about at the beginning of the show. It's still kind of setting in that, you know, I like own property and stuff.
It's
so
insane.
It is pretty insane. It's just like no more paying other people's rent. So, you know, I'm going to say this, like, if you have a plan, stick to it. I put this plan in motion in my mind years ago, and you know, it was able to come to fruition, obviously, you know, without getting too cliche, like,
yeah,
you know, with a lot of hard work and pre-planning. Like, you know, I did my thing. I thought it was, you know, there were times where I doubted. There were times where I was, you know, I didn't know what was going to happen. But here we are. I'm chilling. I got a place, and no more bad internet for the online episodes, however long they may continue.
Love that. Josh, how do you tapping out?
Oh man, really don't have too much to say. Max, big congrats. One day, somehow, I'll own my own house. I can't even fathom it, but it will happen one day. I hope.
Trust me. Don't feel weird for not knowing where the hell that tunnel ends in. And in my junior or senior year of college, whichever one you're in, I still barely was sure of my major at that time. So
Yeah.
Yep.
I think you're doing all right. Don't worry.
I appreciate it, Digits, but I'm just saying, like, that's awesome. Man, I don't have too much to say other than, like, I went to a Phillies game last week with my family, and, like, it was just the best. You know what I mean? Like, we've talked about this before. We've been, you know, we personally have been through the ringer as everyone else has been with COVID and all these restrictions, and it was just so freaking normal. Like, even the normal things now, there's still a wrinkle here and a wrinkle there. I mean, it was awesome. There were no, I high-fived a person when the Phillies walked off, right? You make a best friend for 2 innings that you're next to, and you high-five when the Phillies walk it off. And you know what? I would have never thought about it before. But after sitting in my house and being distant from people for so long, and I can just high-five this guy when Brad Miller walks it off, man, it feels good. So you know what? Baseball's back. Life is back. It's a good time, and it's coming home, fellas. You know, not too much to say for my tap out. I got some good vibes. You know, the summer's been weird. The internships, the work has been weird. I'm just happy. I'm just here so I don't get fined. I'm happy to be here. So I'm trying to put out some good vibes into the world. That's my tap out, fellas.
Love that. Well, hey, if you were not able to join us here live, as we are, we took a little bit of a couple days break here, but we're going to be back at a normal time on Monday next week. If you didn't get to join us live, you know where to find us. You can find us wherever you get your podcast, whether that be Spotify, Anchor, Apple Podcasts, anywhere in between. TTPL Philly, Trust the Process Live. Look us up. Join us in podcast form, and if you can, catch us next time live. But as always, we are brought to you by My New Philly, where something is always new. And everything's always Philly. Have a good one, Philly. We will see you next week.
Let's go, Phillies.
We'll see you with